أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm really sorry making you wait. So we will continue with the 24th word, first branch.
A sultan has different titles in the spheres of his government, and different styles and attributes among the classes of his subjects, and different names and signs in the levels of his rule. For example, just judge in the judiciary, sultan in the civil service, commander-in-chief in the army, and caliph in the learned establishment. If making an analogy with these, you know the rest of his names and titles, you will understand that a single sultan may possess 1,000 names and titles in the spheres of his rule and levels of government. It is as if, through his corporate personality and telephone, the ruler is present and knowing in every sphere, and through his laws and regulations and representatives, sees and is seen, and behind the veil in every degree, disposes and sees, governs and observes through his decree, knowledge, and power. It is exactly the same for the sustainer of all the worlds, who is the ruler of pre-eternity and post-eternity. In the degrees of his dominicality, he has attributes and designations which are all different, but which look to each other. And in the spheres of his Godhead, he has names and marks which are all different, but which are one within the other. And in his magnificent activities, he has representations and appellations which are all different, but which resemble each other. And in the disposals of his power, he has titles which are all different, but which hint of one another. And in the manifestations of his attributes, he has sacred appearances which are all different, but which show one another. And in the displays of his acts, he has wise disposals which are of numerous sorts, but which complete one another. And in his multicolored art and varieties of creatures, he has splendid aspects of dominicality, which are all different, but which look to one another. And together with this, in every world and every realm of beings, the title of the most beautiful names is manifested. In each sphere, one name is dominant, and the other names are subordinate to it. Rather, they are on the account of it. Furthermore, in every level of beings, many or few, great or small, particular or general, he has an appearance through a particular manifestation, a particular dominicality, a particular name. That is to say, although the name in question is general and encompasses everything, it is turned towards a thing with such intention and importance that it is as if it is special to that thing alone. Moreover, although the all-glorious Creator is close to everything, there are almost 70,000 luminous veils obscuring him. You can compare how many veils there are from the particular degree of creativity of the name of Creator, which is manifested on you to the greatest degree, and supreme title, which is Creator of all the universe. That means, on condition you leave the whole universe behind you, from the door of creativity you may reach the limits of the name of Creator and draw close to the sphere of attributes. The veils have windows which look to one another, and the names appear one within the other, and the acts look to one another, and the similitudes enter one within the other, and the titles hint of one another, and the manifestations resemble each other, and the disposals assist and complete one another, and the various dispositions of dominicality help and assist one another. It surely therefore necessitates not denying the other titles, acts, and degrees of dominicality when Almighty God is known through one of his names, titles or degrees of dominicality. Indeed, it is harmful if a transition is not made from the manifestation of any one name to the others. For example, if the works of the names of all-powerful and Creator are seen, and not the name of all-knowing, a person may fall into heedlessness and the misguidance of nature. He should always keep in view and recite, He, and He is God. He should listen and hear from everything. Say, He is God, the One. His tongue should utter and proclaim, all the world declares there is no God but He. Thus, through the decree of God, there is no God but He. His are the most beauteous names. The Quran points to these truths we have mentioned.
So, thank you for that. As a reminder, this branch is discussing the verse of God, there is no God but He. His are the most beautiful names. So in the first paragraph, he had drawn an analogy of a sultan, or we can think of it as a king or president, who through the various different spheres of government dons on different titles and exhibits different qualities. And he was likening this example to the sustainer of all the worlds. So before we go into the second paragraph, does anyone want to say anything that they want to draw from the first paragraph or from last week? If not, that's okay. Okay, so we can start to just slowly go sentence by sentence with the second paragraph then. He says, so following this analogy of a king with different titles and who is present in all the spheres through his corporate personality and telephone, and manifests his qualities through these various ways. He says, it is exactly the same for the sustainer of all the worlds, who is the ruler of pre-eternity and post-eternity. In the degrees of his dominicality, he has attributes and designations which are all different, but which look to each other. And in the spheres of his Godhead, he has names and marks which are all different, but which are one within the other. And I can keep going on because he's very liberally using semicolons here. So we might end up finishing the paragraph.
I think that the whole paragraph is just one sentence.
Yeah, probably. So saying it's the same for the sustainer of all the worlds, who is, and now he's kind of explaining, I guess, what sustainer of all the worlds means. He says, who is the ruler of pre-eternity and post-eternity, which I take to be just not subject to time, really. In the degrees of his dominicality, his attributes and designations which are all different, but which look to each other. And the spheres of his Godhead. Is Godhead, is he just using like it interchangeably with dominicality? Is it like rububiyyah? Or Godhead is such a foreign word, you know? I don't understand anything by Godhead.
I don't think so, but I can let you know right now.
So I guess while you look at that, he's trying to emphasize the
Godhead is uluhiyah.
uluhiyah. Okay. Well, that doesn't help, I guess, in explaining further, but maybe we can use that word instead. But I guess he's trying to emphasize the variety or diversity of attributes that these qualities of rububiyyah and uluhiyah look at, but how they also look to each other at the same time. And maybe we can talk about how we might experience that on a practical basis. And then he goes on to say, and in his magnificent activities, he has representations and appellations, which are all different, but which resemble each other. What does appellations mean?
Titles.
Titles? Okay, so he has representations and titles.
So in Turkish, for instance, they go in the military. When you have different things, it's
like
called
ranks.
appolet. Yes, ranks. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. He has representations and ranks. What does that even mean? I mean, in his magnificent activities, he has representations and ranks, which are all different, but which resemble each other. So it seems like here Nursi is kind of being very kind of general and broad, and maybe we can try to anchor it with some of your insightful examples. I don't know. Any thoughts so far? What was the? Yeah, go ahead.
You were asking something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, how do I?
Oh, the password?
Yeah,
1160.
1160 for the whole world to. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, we, go ahead, and then afterwards we can hear Muhammad's side, inshallah.
Today, during the Friday khutbah, the Imam or Hatim, he was talking about these names. He was talking about some hadith, saying that you should call the Creator, the God, Allah, with His beautiful names. Don't use, he even said, like, don't use different names than He, I don't know, how to say, He allowed or something like that. It was his interpretation.
Than what is given in the scripture?
Yes, maybe. Yeah, the ones, other than the ones given in the scripture, he was saying, like, don't use the other names. Or maybe I heard it, it doesn't matter. That's like his interpretation. The part, I guess the important, at least for me, is that he was saying that call him with his beautiful names. So I was thinking, like, what does it mean? And like, sorry?
Why is it
Yeah,
important?
why it's important? Do I have such a need? First of all, because like we started reading the chapter, it says, okay, this is the interpretation of this verse. God, there is no God but He. His are the most beautiful names. And then all these explanations, they are as if, the author is trying to justify why in Quran there are different names, or why in Islam we're talking about all these different names. How does it make sense? As if. And he says, just like, Sultan has different names, God can also have different names. Like, you can read it that way. But knowing a little bit about the author, Nursi, and what he's trying to do, like I'm asking a question like why I need to know all these names, or maybe I'm asking like in the reverse direction. Maybe I'm already knowing about these names. I already know about these names, and I'm just trying to make sense of them. And here comes a verse saying, giving an, let's say, explanation of my question. So in my case, what is the question is, when I try to live my life, I see all these different qualities in different places. Like I see, mercy in my mother, but anger in my wife. Right? Just for an example. Beauty, in my wife, but ugliness in my friends. All these different qualities, and they're just kind of like a floating around. And when I, let's say, lose my mother, as if, the mercy I see also goes away with her. Because mercy was her, so she dies, mercy dies. The beautiful thing dies, beauty goes. But this verse says, all these different qualities you see in the creation, even the ones which at the beginning seems like contradictory to each other, they all belong to Him. They all comes from the same source. So when you see a quality, just attribute this quality to this eternal source. This is one part, I guess. Just try to make sense of all these different qualities you see different places. Because we say, it starts with, there's no God but He. We say that, okay, there's no God but He, but my boss is clever, my friend is attractive, my, mother is merciful. But what happened to there's no God but He part? So these two, I guess, together make sense. And another thing, going back to what Hatib was saying, like when I say there is no God but He, I say, okay, yes, I cannot explain anything without saying, there must be a creator who created this. But at the end, I guess this is what we discussed last week, is I said, yes, there's no God but He, and that's all. Like it's something inaccessible. But here he says, no, like you have this constant relationship, constant link with Him. You see Him, you experience His actions, not you see Him, but you see His actions, all these different qualities, all these different ranks, all these different representations, appellations, everywhere. Whatever you see a different aspect, different quality or rank of Him. So your relationship with Him is not a distant one at all. You are surrounded by Him. You are surrounded by His actions, His qualities. I guess this is like another part. And maybe third part is I need, like as a person, I need to call someone. Like we discussed this when we were discussing dua, like supplication. I need to be heard. I need to have a dialogue with my Creator. I want this. And I don't know how. Because the usual way they teach us, the Creator, that there's a Creator who sits on His throne, so inaccessible. If you are lucky, you will meet Him after you die, if you are super like a believer. It doesn't enough if you are a believer, you have to be super believer. And like some of them will see Him. This kind of narrations. Then, like my hands are empty. I have no chance to communicate. I have no chance to ask something from Him. But here, Quran, it says, all these beautiful names that you have in your life, the merciful one, the creator, powerful one, knowledgeable one, these are the names I already have in my life. Right? I was attributing some of them to you, some of them to you, some of them to others, but they are already there. The knowledge, power, beauty, destruction, construction, whatever, they are already there. So all these names represent His actions. So you can call Him through them, he says. I guess there are these different aspects of this first two paragraphs.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful for me, and it makes me think of just like the diversity of feelings I feel just in one day in 24 hours, right? Like you can call it mood swings, or you can call it the richness of being a human being. But I can feel happy, sorrow, confusion, nervousness, anxiety, like all in just a span of like 5 minutes. And I guess here, through this, I can know that each of those feelings, each moment points to a need. Whether if it's happiness, I want to feel the continuation of that happiness. If it's anxiety, I want to, I feel the need to get rid of it or to seek ease in it. So as you were saying, the calling out aspect of it, like I guess, like there is no moment in which there is no opportunity for me to connect myself to the Creator. Like every single feeling, experience then becomes an opportunity because there is a name there or a way for me to connect my existence to His. But let me pass the mic to Mohammed Saeed now. He's had his hand up for a while. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Last time I was not able to join the discussion, so it was good for me to hear it from the beginning. I think this is kind of a summary, what I understand from the part that we have read today, or our brother read today. The example makes sense to me that an organization within my within my experience by using human qualities to put something out there as a functioning system. An organization definitely requires a coordinator, and the functionality of that system is definitely dependent on the different components working together, if there are different components. But as an observer, up to the level of me detecting functionalities or qualities in the system, I think that much of acknowledgement I will have about the coordinator or the abilities of the coordinator. I mean, this example makes sense to me, but when I use this approach to the existence of the universe, I have to kind of go beyond the universe, because what the existence of the universe shows that it has to be made, and it for example, an island in the middle of an ocean tells me that it cannot make itself. It cannot really make by the help of the ocean or anything in the universe. So the existence of the universe shows that my understanding or my connection with the coordinator, with the maker, kind of must go beyond this, beyond the universe. But my acknowledgement of the maker is limited, or is possible, as much as I acknowledge the qualities here, like an island. Yes, an island shows to me that it has to be made by the maker of the universe. Okay, now, and as an island as a whole, that it tells me that it is made by it must be made by the maker of the universe. But there are trees on the island. There are inhabitants on the island. Look, I am naming them trees, and I am becoming aware of the relationship of the tree with the soil, a relationship. And I am becoming aware of the relationship between the tree and the sun, another relationship. Like these qualities, up to the level of me detecting the qualities on this island, that much of acknowledgement I can have possibly with the maker that is beyond, that is not of the nature of the tree or the island. I found it actually very logical and satisfying in this way to acknowledge the maker of this island as an example. I think that's all at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Mohammed Said, for that. I see that Suhail had a comment a while ago, it seems. He asked, what was the question? Well, I forgot which question I was asking, but we're basically, you probably realized, on the second paragraph of the first branch. Yeah.
What do you understand from the text? That was the question.
Sure. In the broadest sense, what do you understand from the text? And I guess just of trying to root it or anchor it in our practical lives, which I always find helpful. And just kind of going back to the verse of it makes me think about maybe in each of those feelings that I experience, or events, interactions, anything that I come to experience, how do I apply the La ilaha part? How do I apply the there is no God but He? And it seems like if I apply that, then I will become cognizant of the beautiful name, of the name or attribute that is being manifested there for me. But I have to go through that process of negation first. Any other comments, questions out from online participants or in person? Yes.
So we see second paragraph. He says he has representations and appellations which are all different but which resemble each other. Actually, it starts from the beginning, right? He talks about all these differentiations, these differences, variations we see, which are all different but resemble each other, has titles which are all different but which hint one another. In manifestations of his attributes, he has sacred appearances which are all different but which show one another, and so on. So they're all different but somehow connected, or all different but they somehow link to one another. So there are many, I guess, different ways to understand this. There are different, let's say, wisdom. One thing which this reminded me is that, like in my life, there are different periods. There are different, let's say, parts of my life. So, for instance, when I at home, I have an almost completely different life than when I'm at work. When I'm at nature, it's completely different than when I'm in the middle of city. So almost like these differences almost like a push us to end up with things, our ideas, like, there's religion and there's non-religion. Like the part of your life that you have to forget about the God and you just work, you just do X, Y, Z, whatever.
Religious versus non-religious domains.
Exactly. Religious domain, non-religious domain. So yes, it doesn't make sense, like after studying all these verses together, it doesn't make sense. But at the same time, like when I look at my life, it's almost very attractive to have such this division, because all these differences are there. Like there are, like when I'm with my colleagues, for instance, it's really hard to think about, I don't know, all these realities that we've been discussing, as if it's completely different. But here he says, yes, Birkan, you will see all these variations in your life.
You say like attractive, you mean like it is easier to, like, for us to think that way, like separate them?
Yes, it's either easier or either, or
Like
it's
when you
like,
say attractive, I was wondering why you
like
say.
as if this idea tells us that, okay, go with it.
Convenient.
So, sorry?
Convenient.
Maybe, yes, very convenient. Like you don't say, oh, this is a stupid idea, I don't know where people come up with this. You don't say that. You understand where they're coming from. That's what I mean. Because really, like in my life, like what I see on my left is different than what I see on my right. Not in this case. What I see when I look front, like ahead, versus when I look behind, it's all different. Like what I have when I'm child, what I have when I'm grown out, whatever. It's all different. It's very different. And here he says that yes, they are all different. But if you look carefully, you will see that they are linked to each other. Whatever you experience in workplace, whatever you experience in your classes, whatever you experience, I don't know, working in front of the computer at your home, it is linked to what you experience with your friends. It is also linked to what you experience with your parents. It's also linked to what you experience with your spouse or children. They all look to each other. They may seem different, they may seem as if they're defining a different domain of creation, or some of them you will look at them and you will think they are not even part of created domain, it just happens by itself. Look carefully, you will see how they are linked to each other. So he's, I guess, saying that there is no such separation in reality. There is only diversity or variations of the different manifestations of the same source.
So, like, do you think like we have that what is the word?
Compartmentalization.
Yeah. Say again.
Compartmentalization.
We do that.
I
will not be able to say it. We do that as like religious domain versus non-religious domain. Convenience is one thing. The other thing is actually God is so distant that has no relevance, like in our day-to-day like life. That's why like there is this set of rules that is considered religious domain, and the rest you are completely free on your own, and you are the one who is handling everything. Do you think it's because of that kind of thinking that we do that? Yes. And author here is suggesting that even though you think that like God is so distant from you, actually in reality, every single action that you observe is a manifestation of a name, and like together with like one name being more apparent than the others, but like every single action is a manifestation of his names. But certain names must maybe more obvious than the others based on the example or the situation or the case. So like in other words, like he kind of like brings God from heaven, in quotation mark, to like earth, not the same way as like Jesus' understanding, but he's trying to, like, with this verse actually he's trying to bring it to maybe like bring our understanding to a level that, let me put it that way, that actually God is not a distant object of worship, but he's rather right in the middle of like every action that you experience.
I just have to seek to recognize it.
Yeah, so like you need to train yourself to like holding on to those like qualities or attributes that you experience in each and every case to ascend back to him, because that's why like God, there is no God but he, because nothing else in this creation can have those qualities but him. So like you need to like practice that La ilaha with every single name or every single experience.
So Brother Samael had his hand up for a while. He put it back down, but would you like to speak? I'll mute myself.
No, I think what I wanted to say was kind of pretty much said. I just wanted to mention, in addition to the compartmentalization and seeing one name within another, is that you can really go to anything that you experience and you observe a name, and that name can take you back to the sustainer of all the worlds. So it's irrespective of which name you look towards, whatever your interest or concern or perception is, which is remarkable when you think about it. And the other thing being, when you look at one name, let's say knowledge or power or will or mercy or compassion, you can always say that name necessitates another name. let's say wisdom necessitates knowledge, which necessitates power, which necessitates will, which necessitates, mercy or compassion, et cetera, et cetera. You can't break that loop, so to speak, kind of what Muhammad said was saying, except that you refer back to the sustainer of all the worlds. All of those names that are because if you say, okay, this name necessitates that name, which looks to that name, and looks to that name, and looks to that name. Like if you just go in that circle, or sorry, if you just go down that path, you don't end up anywhere. Like in the end, you end up where you started. So you can't escape the thing itself, and you didn't explain anything either. And the only step you can take is the thing beyond it, or the step out of itself, as Muhammad Say was saying, which is another remarkable thing, in that a quality is not independent of any other quality, so to speak. So even as he gave the first example about the Sultan, in one's personal life, when you do something and let's say you drink a glass of water, you don't do it independent of your knowing how to drink water and that you need water and that water will quench you. The power to do it and the will to make the choice, the wisdom in knowing water quenches you, so on and so forth. So as Osman was saying, there's no compartmentalization of anything. And because of that lack of compartmentalization, that's how you can refer back to the sustainer of all the worlds. Because if things were compartmentalized, you couldn't talk about a sustainer of all the worlds. What sustainer of all the worlds are you talking? There would be a sustainer for this quality, and a sustainer for that quality, and a sustainer for another quality. And it would appear possibly that a sustainer for a certain quality may be the thing itself, or something else in the universe, potentially. But to show that nothing acts on its own accord, and that they all proceed from the same one, is what the names all being interconnected necessitate. So if there wasn't sort of an interconnectedness, there wouldn't be your conclusion about an absolute sustainer of all the worlds. Hence why when you do compartmentalize, like in modern sort of education, secular education, and I don't mean secular because science itself is secular, but because of the secularizing force people project onto the world, is when you end up with secular thought. So you have science out there and then philosophy separately. But if you ask anybody who is honest with himself, you can't separate quote unquote science or the analysis of something with how you perceive it or how you interpret what it means. It's impossible. The same goes with qualities. It's the same thing. Because when you look at the form of something, let's say you're a scientist, you're looking at form, you can't help but look at the knowledge aspect or what it means. I mean, you can deny it, or you can try not to not acknowledge it, but it's impossible. Because the form itself necessitates knowledge and power and will, which a scientist may say, oh, that's the realm of philosophy, what it means. But the very fact that the object necessitates that question or points to it means you can't ignore it. Because if you think about it, that's as contradictory as saying, oh, a philosopher can ignore the form but just comment on what it means. But they go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So back to what Muhammad Sai was saying, which in and of itself necessitates that things look beyond themselves.
All very helpful points. I certainly agree, and this makes me think about it just let alone within these various disciplines and whatnot, just bringing it back even more home to me. Like how sometimes I try to compartmentalize my own self for convenience or as a coping mechanism. Like if I need to be in a classroom setting, I'll put on like a certain specific hat and become that specific Ayşe Nur. And if I need to be, I was like at my friend's wedding today, and it was a very social, busy setting, and then I had to put on like my social hat and like become a specific Ayşe Nur for those specific hours. And here maybe I'm putting on like the contemplative Ayşe Nur, pretending to be thoughtful and inquiring. And
so this is not a religious setting?
Well, I don't know, but regardless, like I constantly in my own life feel the need to put on all these different hats, right? And sometimes it makes me feel very disunified to the point where I question, well, which one am I? Which one am I really? Is this one real or is that one real? Or I feel a lack of cohesion. And I guess why I'm mentioning all this is to show that in my lack of unity or stability, if you will, I realize that I need one that is not compartmentalized. I need one that is unified in all its qualities, in which one quality always will look to, I don't want to say isn't independent, because words like independent and dependent make me raise other question marks that I don't want to get into, perhaps, to disrupt the topic for qualities, but they look to each other, they point to each other, they signify to each other, and they make me acquainted with further qualities. And there's just it's all very unified and just stable and secure, if you will. And I guess I realize the need for that. I say, oh, I actually need something like this. I need a it or he like that. Because I realize that I don't even have the quality to be so interconnected or unified, or if any of that makes sense. But that's just one angle that came to mind. All great comments. Any other comments here or questions? Oh, let's see. Sohail has, okay. He says, a woman of many faces.
What?
A woman of many faces. Okay.
I would make a comment.
Yeah, please.
I don't know if I agree with your example of compartmentalization, because the environment that we in the setting or situation that we're in may require different versions or different actions from us. That, like if I'm at work, I might be a researcher, and that'll require me to be analytic, do data manipulation or something. But I won't express that trait when I'm at home with my family, because me being at home with my family does not require me, does not ask of me to be analytical, but yet that is still me. I'm just not expressing this specific attribute of myself that is expressed somewhere else. So I don't think that's compartmentalization, because I think compartmentalization is more like having a more distinct separation of who you are. Maybe it's like, if we bring back the religious and secular situation, maybe you have friends from your mosque, and you act a certain way with them. Maybe it's the thing to be religious, and being non-religious is like, so you're one type of way with those friends. You go to school and they're not religious, they're not Muslim, they're secular, and then you're like a totally different person. That, I feel like, is compartmentalization. It's a more distinct separation rather than expressing yourself in different ways.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess since we were using the word compartmentalized, that seemed like a way to describe
We
the
don't.
feeling.
Yes, two of us cannot use
All right,
the
just
word
division of, or faces, whatever, hats. It doesn't really matter. But regardless, like at least for myself, right? I feel a lack of it. You know, I want to express all the qualities that I find myself in the most perfect fashion, but I can't. You know, I have to pick and choose, or pick one at the expense of another. You know, there's always some sort of conflict or something that makes me feel ungrounded, if you will. But
Okay.
Actually, you already agreed on the same definition. Just to like emphasize it more, I think being different at work, at home, outside, those are examples for different like manifestation of different names. Because I think that at least from the text, that's what I understand. Like there are like names that are like more apparent in certain settings than the others, right? Like for example, for the first time when I saw the Niagara Falls, like it's like what do you say, jaw dropping, like the all, like the all in, you have the feeling that you have is just all, like, and what you experience there is the power, tremendousness, yeah. But like, do you really experience the same thing? Like, for example, when you look at the sunset, like in the evening, or when you see the sunrise in a clear sky, like with light clouds and stuff.
I'll speak for yourself.
So it's not the same feeling.
No.
So it's not the manifestation of the same names. It is the same thing for like workplace setting versus home. But like, I think the word that I can say is more like, okay, they are this like religious domain that requires these ABCDs that I have to do just to comply with the group or the society. And as long as I do these, the rest of my life is mine and mine only.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to decide what how I'm gonna live that life. And it's like completely like disconnected from the creator, and there is no belief in that domain.
So Suhail has his hand up. Please go.
You know, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speak for Aisha Nur, but you know, I can understand what she's saying there, in that you're in different settings, and the setting itself doesn't allow you to, or puts a sort of mask over reality, or some sort of veil over what's really happening, as Nursi is describing here. I mean, to use his example of the Sultan, I mean, to me, it's pretty obvious when a Sultan or a president or a prime minister presents him or herself anywhere, no matter the setting, everybody knows they're the Sultan or the Caliph. In other words, it's obvious who or what they represent and who they are and what they mean. In the same regard, if I go Aisha Noor's, let's say, goes to her university in a philosophy class, I doubt they would have the same conversation we're having now. Even though whatever conversation they're having has no sort of basis, possibly, or is not really addressing the truthfulness of the matter, the kernel of truth in the matter. And I guess I don't want to speak for her, but if that's what she meant, I mean, I feel the same way. At least my own personal solution is, you know, as Nursi is kind of elucidating here, is for myself, in my own personal perception, what do I see? But I can't really dictate what people say or do, or necessarily how society presents things, but I can control. I do have the choice about my perception or how I interpret things. So I may be in a science class where they're just spewing sort of existential lies about the world. They may be telling you how things work, but they attribute the qualities of those things to themselves. But I can reinterpret that for myself. To me, that's the only way to get around that sort of many hats or many faces sort of thing that Aishner was talking about. It can be difficult, but I think trying to be cognizant in whatever setting you are, seeing that name, that quality that's manifesting, and trying to be cognizant and reflective of that. And as Osmo was saying, in any sort of environment, you can see any specific name manifesting. Regardless of what people are doing, you can see qualities manifesting. The question is, are you paying attention?
Thank you for that. I appreciated the empathizing, though less so the complete destruction of my discipline or your distaste for it. But we have a comment here by Hitchcock. Please go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say, from the way I see it, rather than it being a division of different qualities, it's just in certain situations, I find myself with a greater need for a certain name or quality than another. So at work, for example, I may feel a greater need for a sense of justice or a sense of order, something like that. Whereas at home, I might feel a greater need for mercy or compassion or something along those lines. And in different situations, the need for different qualities arise in me, and based on those, the different hats, as you expressed it, are not necessarily different hats, but just it's one hat that I keep turning around, maybe. Like it's one hat and just one side of it kind of looks outward, but all the other ones still are there. And so just as in my interaction with a sense of compassion, if I take the justice or wisdom out of it, then it's no longer compassion either. It becomes lacking, and that's not what I seek. So just as all of these different qualities look to one another, and they're not, what I found interesting is also like, it says, which are within one another, right? They're not like, they're like concentric circles, or they're not like overlapping in certain respects, but they're all within one another. So I don't exactly know how to express that, because even concentric circles requires that one is within the other, which is within the other and within the other, but rather they're all within one another or interrelated somehow, whereas they don't have like a certain part that overlaps and other parts that are dismissed. So my understanding is that, for example, this was an example given to me by someone too, like if I'm driving and talking to someone at the same time, right, I may be listening to them, but my priority there is driving, is focusing on the road or driving safely, or making sure that I'm checking the conditions of the road. So those qualities manifest more in me in the act of driving. But at the same time, in the background, I'm listening to the other person, I'm comprehending what they're saying, but the priority of my qualities go to defensive driving, for example. Whereas if I stop the car and I pull over, then the qualities that are necessary to drive safely are put on hold, or there's more secondary. They're still there, but then my ability to listen and focus and comprehend and digest what the other person's saying takes on a greater role. So yeah, I'm just saying the same thing over and over again, but like it's a manifestation of, or rather the coming about of one thing a little bit more, it becomes more apparent or clear to me than something else because of the situations a certain circumstance necessitates.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. I think the driving example really helps. Okay, before I get to Suhail, we have some comments here that I'm going to give priority to, so please go.
Thank you. So the continuation of the second paragraph. I would say the third paragraph, but the part which is at the beginning of the second page. He has sacred appearances, which are all different, but which show one another. And in the displays of his acts, he has wise disposal, which are of numerous sorts, but which complete one another in his multicolored art and varieties of creatures. He has splendid aspects of dominicality, which are all different. And together with these, in every world, in every realm of beings, the title of one of the most beautiful names is manifested. Do all these, multicolored, numerous sorts, splendid aspects, do they also remind you as well all these diversity talks? I guess this is important because we will see in other branches as well. He will give some practical examples about both comprehensiveness and also encompassing aspect of the creation, the creator. But I guess as a nutshell here, what I understand is in your life, you will see all these different type of people, all these different type of creatures. Don't be afraid. I'm talking to myself because most of the time I find myself afraid.
Can you clarify what you mean by diversity talks?
Diversity talks, it's nowadays, I guess, we hear all things we should include immigrants more in whatever. We should include more women, we should include more Muslims, more Asians, more, X, Y, Z. All universities, maybe industries, they are proud of their, the numbers, how many colored people they have, how many Muslim, Jewish, Christian, whatever they have. This is what I meant. And I didn't mean that, this is one of these kind of talks. I didn't mean that. But it reminds me, at least, and I will come to this, but even these talks, I guess they have their truth. This is what I understand from the text as well. So anyway, I see all these different kind of people, I see all these different kind of creatures, ideologies around me. And I think author tells me that, don't be afraid. Don't be, afraid that you are just a minority, you are just one part. Not everyone is like you. This is something normal. This is something wise in itself. You are experiencing all these different colors. Again, if you look careful from your perspective, you can reach the same source through all these different colors. And because you are reaching to the source from all these different varieties, you will know him even better. So do not look for homogeneity in your experiences. Do not look for, in a world everyone looks like you, thinks like you, acts like you.
Which we tend to do.
Yes. We, a personal speaking, every time I interact with people who are thinking completely different than I am kind of intimidated somehow, afraid, as if I have to argue, I have to prove something, whatever. This is one part. But at the same time, there's something in me saying that, if what you have is true, what about this? Why all these people, acting completely opposite of what you believe? And all these different people, they don't look like stupid people as well, neither. They are wise people, they are, intelligent people, they have their style, but anyway, all these different colors somehow I guess sometimes overwhelm you. An author says, this is the beauty. like all these different colors, you will see all this the different aspect of your creator. If everyone was like you, for instance, if there was no the talks about, I don't know, being more inclusive about some groups, even you hate, right? You wouldn't experience justice. But all these groups looking for their representation in society, fighting for it, right? It shows you the justice that you are looking for as well. So it doesn't matter which group is looking for justice. Stick to the justice. Stick to the name just there, even if you do not support the group. Do not be lost with individuals, creatures. Look at the source that creates them. Look at the source that you reach through them. So don't be overwhelmed, don't be afraid. They will take you another aspect of your creator. When I look from this perspective, I guess the word diversity makes sense. Otherwise, the way we use it, it's like divide everything, cluster them, accept that they are all different, but at the same time respect and just go with it. Like you have to live with them, so live with them.
Not just makes sense. Diversity is a necessity.
Exactly.
It is an existential necessity.
Yes. So just to clarify, the last thing I said, like you have to go, like live with them, just live with them. This is not what I'm suggesting. This is the way implicitly, like nobody speaks that way, but implicitly this is how diversity is presented.
Diversity for diversity's sake.
Exactly, diversity for diversity. Like you are Muslim, I don't care about you. I don't believe what you believe. I think what you believe is stupid, by the way, but I love you. Like, we are society. I don't want to hear what you believe. Like, don't dare to share with me, but I love you. Let me hug you. So this is, usually we understand. But diversity in this sense, at least to me, it's more...
it's richness.
Exactly, make more sense because now in real sense, you respect all these differences. Because you say, okay, yes, in all these differences, I see a different aspect of my creator. Maybe they, fight against religion, fight against what you believe, but you observe dignity there. You believe in something, and you fight. They believe in something, and they fight for it. You see one aspect of your creator, one manifestation of a beautiful name.
Before you go online, can I make a quick comment? So whenever there is a diversity, conflict is inevitable because like in one realm there will be, let's say, the name of like all just will manifest heavier more than the, let's say, the all wise, right? Or in one personality it will manifest in a different way than the other personality. So like, and these two individuals trying to communicate. So it is inevitable for people to look at the case from different angles or from different windows. So the implication of this is not just, okay, like since it's another manifestation of another names, let me just bear with the burden since I do not agree with the idea. It's rather actually putting you in a position that understanding that you are just one of the many in that diversity, and there are many more different angles that you can look at the case. So it would bring richness in your understanding as well if you are completely comfortable to say that, okay, that's how I see it, but let me try to look into the case from others' perspective to see why they claim the thing that they claim. So if you have that approach and that understanding, First of all, I think this would be really big answer for like all the fights and the wars in the universe that takes place. If everyone
Solution
really,
for world peace.
it is really the solution for the world peace if everyone really understood this. But that's also impossible. And the other thing is like it also opens up another like avenue for you to explore the life and get to know the creator from like other perspectives as well.
Okay. Brother Sohail, you can go ahead.
I think I forgot what I was going to say. If I remember, I'll raise my hand again.
Okay, and we'll give you priority next time you raise your hand. Okay, so that was a great discussion so far. Maybe we can, Brother Rikon kind of went into the other sentences, but let me go through those as well, starting with the beginning of the paragraph. Because it's all one long sentence. Okay, so yeah, let me start from the beginning of the sentence again, paragraph 1. It is exactly the same for the sustainer of all the worlds, who is the ruler of pre-eternity and post-eternity. I wonder why he's emphasizing the ruler of pre-eternity and post-eternity part here.
I think that's just like pointing out his absoluteness.
Okay.
Because like obviously we discussed that last week, that's important, like absolute qualities versus like the manifestations. Maybe it may be related to the reason.
In the degrees of his dominicality, his attributes and designations, which are all different, but which look to each other, and the spheres of his Godhead, or Uluhiyah, he has names and marks which are all different, but which are one within the other. And in his magnificent activities, he has representations and appellations, which are all different, but which resemble each other. And the disposals of his power, he has titles which are all different, but which hint of one another. And the manifestations of his attributes, his sacred appearances. In the manifestations of his attributes, he has sacred appearances. I'm going to put a question mark by sacred, which are all different, but which show one another. And the displays of his acts, he has wise disposals, which are of numerous sorts, but which complete one another. And in his multicolored art and varieties of creatures, he has splendid aspects of dominicality, which are all different, but which look to one another. So let me just pause there. Is he just repeating the same thing, but with like different vocabulary? Initially at least, it seems like that. Like he's using a variety of different words, but he's making an emphasis on the same, like, they're all different, but they look to each other. Yeah. I mean, I have a hard time in general with sometimes trying to understand Nursi's writings. And I feel like he does this often. He follows this sort of rhythm of a phrase, but substitutes different words. So I'm trying to understand if he's just emphasizing the same point through different angles, or if he's making different points within each. Yeah.
So the way I understand it, at least when I look at all these different words, representations, appellations, titles, names, appearances, disposals, acts, I guess these are the different words that I would use in different part of my life. Because sometimes I'm interacting with different, let's say, qualities. When I look at a flower, when I'm interacting with someone who making food, preparing food, I'm interacting with an act there. Sometimes I see someone yelling to another one. I see a disposal or some appearances there. Or when I look at the sunset versus Niagara Fall, all these different words I would naturally use in different part of my life. So to me, like it's makes sense in this way that it covers all my experiences.
Right. And I guess it's then by following this sort of different rhythm, he's also urging me to do the same in my own life.
Exactly. Yes.
That makes sense.
So for instance, like he's talking about the titles, the appellations.
I think it also has like, first of all, like the gist of the matter is like, as Birkan was mentioning, the diversity and like zillion different manifestations of the qualities at different levels. Like first of all, there are different names, and also each name has different levels of manifestation. So when you multiply like those, like you in a way you like reach infinity. So that is the focus. That like in the creation, whatever you observe is different because each name requires manifest in at different level, and one name is more dominant in certain sphere than the others. That is the gist of the matter as far as I can understand. But when it comes to like emphasizing over and over again to different qualities, I should say maybe, I think these are in your understanding of the creator or getting to know him. It's like in a way it is the steps or the levels progression what you're going through. First, like for example, like when you observe something, you observe the actual like the artifact of the thing, right? And from that you deduct certain qualities, and from the qualities you then you deduct certain names. From the names you deduct certain attributes of the creator. So each and every one of them actually refers to something different, but that is in steps of your like humans learning process about the creator. So they are not the same thing, but I think at this level, I'm not sure if we should really dive deep into each one of them, because within like, for example, Shan, like in the original language, name or like sifat, like those, they all refer to different attributes, like qualities.
Yeah, and that makes sense because he goes in this paragraph, he goes through this cycle, right? And then at the very end, and together with this, in every world, in every realm of beings, kind of almost like, this has no end. If I could continue on and on, which is, in parallel with the verse, his are the most beautiful names. Like, it was in a different circle. We were studying another a couple of different verses, but which also had like these same ayat, and he lists all the different qualities, and it's like and like it's endless. All to him, all belong all the beautiful names. And here the author is doing the same after kind of almost repetitively but emphasizing different points, saying the title of one of the most beautiful names is manifested, and in each sphere one name is dominant and the other names are subordinate to it. Rather, they are there on account of it.
So it gets subtler and subtler as you progress with your learning or getting to know him.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if when he says one name is dominant and the other names are subordinate to it, or he says that is they're there on account of it. I wonder if that's at least from my perspective as a human being, it's inevitable that I might see one name more dominant than the others, and that's the only measure of things I can have through my own experience. But I can't. It's not like I can know what the reality of this name is a dominant. No, it's just from pure experience that I experience this one more than the others in this particular setting. Otherwise, I'm not sure if it would make sense for, I would say that all of them would be manifest equally, but just striking to me in a particular way, perhaps.
I think like when it comes to like understanding that like what it really means to like for some names to be dominant in certain spheres more than the others, like one thing we experience, like we observe the outside world, the universe, creation, and the other thing is like we actually like feel those qualities, right? Like in our heart. And like lately, like for me, the best example is like parent, like the child relationship. If you look at like a parent that is like a very loving, a very compassionate and merciful relationship with like a little one, that's obviously you would say that okay, the most dominant name there is like the mercy, right? Or the vedut, like the loving one. But let's say like the child is like in some sort of danger, and like out of the fear, maybe also for the parent, there is this trying to stop like for the baby to like to harm himself or herself. There is like you may see experience an anger in the parent. Like, can you really from that experience? Is it really like wise to like jump to the conclusion that like that parent is an merciless parent, or actually like whatever the name that we experience in terms of anger, actually that is a dominant quality, but mercy is an subservient. Did you say subordinate
Or subservient.
Subordinate to anger, because like that actually quality is still coming from the mercy, but like you don't experience that like immediately. That's not what you see. And like if you take that example and apply to the actual like environment like that you are in, you see that variation. That is how I make sense the paragraph.
I'd like to make another example of the dominancy and subserviency of attributes, and that would be that if I were taken to task for some of the crimes that I committed, I'd be in front of a judge, and then it would be up to the judge to either be just with me and give me the punishment, or if I invoked his mercy and compassion, he might, in the eyes of the law, forgive me and let me go. And so if he does choose to be just with me, despite him being a compassionate man, he would not express that. He would allow me to go through with the punishment. And so justice in that case would be dominant over compassion. But if he lets me go, then the justice of requiring a punishment for me to be being punished for my crime, that would be subservient to the compassion he feels, something like that.
Yeah. So along the lines of what Austin was saying, like even in my experiences of the representations of different qualities, right? For example, the quality of compassion. There is also an overdoing of it, like so very apparent and non-realistic example. But if a mother doesn't wake her kid up to school, right, because she's like, oh no, he should continue sleepy, he's tired. That's an apparent. It's a lack of mercy there. Mm-hmm. Although what looks from the outside may seem like she's doing it out of mercy, but it's clearly overdone to an extent where it no longer is within the realm of what is compassionate. So, and for one thing, it's interesting, like, where do I get this sense of, like, where do you draw the line from? That's interesting. Like, it's already within me. I know that not waking the kid up to school, even the mother probably knows deep down that that's not a good choice too, even though this example is not realistic. But one thing is that I already have this sense of what is, like, within this balance. And secondly, there are these different, I guess, like, when it says representations and appellations, it's like because of the nature of that which is created, it has a limitation in and of itself in its createdness. But there I'm experiencing this certain quality, and from there, because of the way I'm experiencing, there are different, it's like a heartbeat, or, there's different, like, levels or intensities to which I experience those things based on the circumstances and the people or whatever the case is. So again, like it's also interesting to me too how these certain like qualities, when they go outside of what is deemed balanced or normal, then they no longer become. It loses its the core of its what makes it that
Trait.
quality or trait. Sure.
I think that's the reason why the parent-children relationship is the most problematic one. I think two things. One, I think as you said, the intensity of the manifestation of certain qualities, let's say mercy, is so overwhelming that it is very difficult to handle it. That's one thing. The other thing is, but still, it is our responsibility, because since he's the Rabb, we are the Abd. It is part of our ubudiyya not to claim an ownership over that feeling as well. Understanding that that feeling of mercy or compassion is his manifestation. So like you will utilize that feeling to get to know him through those emotions as well. And knowing that he is the owner, you are not. He is the owner of the child and he is the owner of the feeling. They just come together in that relationship for first of all, for you to understand who you are as an Abd. And also it's part of like your like parents' training, and also the when they come to a certain age, children's training as well. But like I think two things. One, you don't realize that actually they are part of our training to like get to know him. And the other thing is like the intensity makes it extremely difficult to realize that actually that is part of the training. So we can be heedless of like one or the other or the both at the same time, which makes it impossible to actually like truly practice that.
Yes.
Going back to like all these choices of different different word choices. So while listening these two guys, I realized like we use the words like qualities, manifestations. Here he used qualities either 0 times or 1 time, I don't know. Manifestation maybe 1 time and so on.
Are you going to ban those words as well?
No. I'm not moderator, I cannot ban any words today. No, I'm not saying this to criticize. I just, while listening, I kind of understood, why he's, one maybe reason, tiny reason, why he's using all these different words. Because when you think about it, when you try to listen from outside, the words like qualities or manifestations, they are so vague. Like they have to be filled. Like what does it mean? What do you mean when you say his manifestations or his qualities? He says, whatever you experience here. Sometimes you experience some actions, like he's nodding his head. And now you are experiencing a creation of him. You look at Osman, he looks beautiful, right? You experience a beautiful appearance of his creation, whatever. So even the word choices that we have, I guess, we are maybe so used to when it comes to Creator, when it comes to God, that it has to be so abstract, so, I don't know, vague, right? We tend to, myself first and foremost, we tend to use words which, make things even more abstract. But when it comes to Nursi, at least in this paragraph, the way I see, he talks about things that I directly experience. Like he talks about appellations, for instance, titles. A president of country, and then the people working for him, and then people working for him. All these different titles I experience. And then all these different appearances I experience. I look at different people, I look at different creatures, I look at flowers, sunset, all these different appearances. I look at carpets, I see all these different colors. I walk on the street, I see The houses are all different shapes. I guess the author Nursi is talking about all these tiny things, quote unquote tiny things, that we experience, most of the time neglect. Like when we walk on the street, we just assume that we will reach the Creator when we come up with a clever idea or something, but not by looking at the houses and see that they are all different shapes. The author says, no, look at the houses. They will be all different colors, all different styles. You will reach your Creator there. You will learn something different about your Creator. Look at the carpets. Look at all these different people, different colors. Right? You will see a different aspect of your Creator.
Any other concerns, questions, epiphanies?
What?
Epiphanies. So we have some online participants we haven't heard from, or have heard from very little.
Is HBase still there?
No, but Brother Yusuf just joined. And Mohammed Said, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for all the comments. The word different is used a lot in this paragraph. So I kind of put some notes here. I would like to share them with you. And like based on this word different. What happens to me, it's my personal experience. When I live a moment or a day, whatever, as like with the assumption that I am the same, or a day is the same day like yesterday, I feel a contradiction. It is if like I have this feeling that I would like to experience something different. And since there is such a contradiction, my being becomes meaningless, or is very close to the meaninglessness because of this contradiction. Or sometimes when I detect the differences, I detect the change, but I say the things are changing, or I am changing through the experiences. Maybe I say I am getting better, through these changing. Again, since the result, the conclusion is like just the change, that yes, I detect the change, but the change is happening, and that's it. There's this change, but it doesn't take me to anything other than the change itself. Again, it is very close to meaninglessness, although I detect the change. If I pay attention to this reality, the reality of these differences, or of this constant change, if I pay attention to it, it makes it possible for me to connect to a source that is absolute behind this change. Connect to it in each change I detect. So in this way, change now taking place in my being, in the universe, becomes very comfortable to experience, because when I see that it is coming from an absolute will, in any degree, in any level of change, is secured. That makes my relationship with this constant change flow with it, without any resistance. Even like if I am healthy, if I take it as a when I pay attention to the existence of health, I see that it is not really a stable state of being, but it is rather it is a constant change. It means I'm being made healthy, but let's say the health is taken away, and does it mean that I'm not being cared anymore? No, it's still a change, and it is still a result of the absolute will, and I am being taken care of in a different way this time. So again, both of the situations seem opposite, but I can still find the comfort in that change. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that what makes the change scary is that sometimes I observe it on the people around me, which is a human condition, that we don't see it the existence as coming from an absolute source. Therefore, the change actually change is necessitated, or change becomes change. The nature of change becomes a meaningful indicator that the source is absolute, because every moment is different. So the source doesn't feel the need to make the same thing, put the same thing. I don't know, maybe this part is not clear in my mind though, but just wanted to share that part too. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Do we have any other comments? Yeah, please.
And so about the maybe fourth paragraph that we read, it's about like a second, third, and fourth paragraph. Okay, it's not only about the fourth paragraph, but like he's talking about all these differences, all these names, and he says, but you need to make the transition from one to another. You need to see how they are linked to each other. Otherwise, it will take you to heedlessness and so on.
Where?
In the fourth paragraph.
Fourth paragraph.
Let me see. It surely therefore necessitates not denying the other titles, acts, and degrees of dominicality, when Almighty God is known through one of his names, titles or degrees of dominicality. So when you see one name, do not deny the others. Others will be there too. Indeed, it is harmful if a transition is not made from the manifestation of any one name to the others. For example, if the works of the names of all powerful and creator are seen, and not the name of all knowing, a person may fall into heedlessness and the misguidance of nature. So I guess this is a very good example actually. If the works of the names of all powerful and creator are seen, and not the name of all knowing, what is the original for all knowing? Is it Alim or? Okay. All knowing, a person may fall into heedlessness and misguidance of nature. So you see that, yes, everything must be created sometime maybe, and you need a power, but things now taking place by themselves. Like he set all the rules, or machine is working, so it's working by itself. So this is what I understand from misguidance of nature. Like you should see that how all names necessitates the others as well. So if you are talking about the creator, it must be an all-knowing creator, all-wise creator, all-powerful creator, all-merciful creator. What you experience, it necessitates that. So I will talk about another aspect of this, like seeing just one name. We do this a lot, and we see that being done a lot. So for instance, we look at all these, even the secular talks or anti-belief whatever talks, you will see that they see 1 or 2 or 3 names they also accept it. For instance, they would say material is eternal. Oh, that means they also see that there must be something eternal, right? They say, we have all these natural laws there, you cannot act against them, or they are all ruling, whatever the word is there. Oh, they also see the name that I see there. Now there must be something, governing everything. So where I'm going with this is that even when hear such ideologies, or even when we interact with such ideas or people, we shouldn't just shut everything, because like the way, at least nowadays, I see that we love to caricaturize things, right? We say, when we talk about unbelievers, for instance, we sketch them as evil people, like in movies. They trying to do something. I will destroy this. I will, kill all the believers or whatever. Like, rather, as far as I see, the author is draw another picture. He says, no, they, like, most of them are, not most of them, like this judgment, but whatever. They may be very wise, they may be very clever, they may be even not ill-intentioned, but well-intentioned. What's it? Yes, well-intentioned. They may have well intentions, but what they do, they just stick to one name and stay there. They don't see how this single name necessitates other names as well. They don't see how these single qualities they see, how this single action they see necessitates other titles, other actions as well. They cannot make the transition. But it shouldn't bother you, and it shouldn't prevent you make the transition. Maybe they are more capable or more talented in seeing this specific name than you are. Benefit from that. See the name they see as well, but make the transition. Show them how to make the transition if you want to do something. So do not, as I said before, caricaturize people. Do not stereotype these ideas. Do not see them just pure evil. Stupid people, they don't see anything, No, they make mistakes. Maybe intentionally, maybe not intentionally, but try to benefit.
Do not compartmentalize the names.
Yeah. Yes, you were able to say it.
And I guess if I'm made to experience that person, or just know that person, or see about them, or hear them, or the moment they enter my realm of existence, there must be a name for me.
Exactly. So that's a very good point. Like when they enter your realm of existence. So this entrance is also from the source, from the God, right? So there must be purpose there too. It's not, act of random blind sources or blind causes.
Their existence in my existence can't be a waste.
Yes. They are brought to your attention for a reason. It could be your God making gossip about them with you. Look at them, how stupid they are. It could be, if this is your God, it could be your God, couldn't handle them, want you handle and, kill them or do something. It could be, if this is your God, or maybe, there's a wisdom, you are being in an interaction with them. Now, even, I guess we can apply this even, the most extreme case, like, I don't know, when Muhammad was talking about these differences, it's for some reason it reminded me, like my behavior sometimes, not always, but sometimes that, I want all these differences. Like, I cannot be satisfied with something. Right? It has to be changed in the next moment. Okay, I enjoyed it. Now what is next? Okay, what is next? What is next? And we see this kind of attitudes in everyone, most of myself, but also these like young generations, we love to criticize, right? These young generations, they cannot be satisfied with anything. They have to change, whatever they see, whatever they taste, it's not enough. Yes, this is something bad. You get your lesson from that, but at the same time, try to see the name there. Try to see a reality there. Like this single action, try to tell you that as a human, you cannot be satisfied with things. And it is true. Maybe the way they behave within this reality, with this truth, maybe it's not right, but it has a truth in itself. That you cannot be satisfied with things in this world. So this is a truth you can extract. This is a name that you can extract from this. So with everything, I guess, we can apply this. Like even with these mythological narrations about the religion, right? They love to talk about this. We love to talk about the gods of Olympus, right? They're stupid people, they thought, all these tiny gods or individuals they were ruling. But also show you that these people were able to see all these different variations. They saw all these different qualities, names, actions. They were aware of them. They couldn't make the transition, maybe. You make the transition. But do not miss something that they were able to see. So, yeah, there's...
And the point you made about difference along with... earlier this week, I was having a conversation with Brother Mohammed Said and Faraz, and we were talking about how even in my belief, I want a freshness to it. Like, I don't... After I'm shown a point or something makes sense to me, I want more. Like I don't want stagnancy in what I believe, or else it's like, okay, then why don't I just die? I've figured it out. I want new layers of meaning to be open to me. I want new layers of understanding. Even in discussions, I want new voices, new ideas, new challenges. And I guess that looks to the fact that I am in need of different names being manifested, which showcase different meanings to me.
Perfection.
Yeah, fundamentally.
What you say about these different layers, also in the third paragraph, it talks about these different layers. You can compare. Okay. Moreover, although the all-glorious Creator is close to everything, there are almost 70,000 luminous veils obscuring Him. You can compare how many veils there are from the particular degree of creativity of the name of Creator, which is manifested on you. So you experience one kind of, let's say, or to a certain level of creativity when you look at yourself, to the greatest degree and supreme title, which is Creator of all the universe. You see, the same Creator, but at different level of creativity when you think about the entire universe. So we can read these as there is a huge distance between us and the Creator when we read these veils. And I guess it has some truth in it, I don't know. Some others may discuss from this perspective. But what it reminds me when I read these, actually, it's just the opposite. Is that wherever you stand, there are all new layers to be discovered. Like there is no end in your journey. Whatever you discover, there will be another layer. Whatever you discover, there will be another layer. It's like unending journey of discoveries, unending journey of interacting with your Creator.
It's like a video game.
Maybe, yes. At every level, you will interact with different beauties. So rather than, this is at least how I see. Because the example, it reminds me this. When I look at myself, I see creativity there. I know my creator, but I don't stop there. I look at other people, I know something more about my creator. It doesn't end there. I look at all animals, I look at the universe, whatever. So my journey doesn't end. There's always new things to learn about my creator. The differences, I guess, the word difference, as Mohammed Said said, is very key here. An author repeats it several times. So seeing all the differences in reality, in creation, in my life, and trying to enjoy them. Like this example we give a lot, many times, everybody knows how many different tastes our tongues can experience. It's so amazing. It could be enough. If I was the designer, I know this is a stupid way of thinking, but it could be enough if I was able to, distinguish hot from, I don't know, sweet from whatever. It's thousands of different tastes, and I can enjoy all of them. It's such a bounty, such a beautiful body. I guess it's same with everything I have, everything I experience. There is no end to anything I do. The contemplation, thinking, no end. The levels of abstractions, sometimes we don't even understand each other. What are we talking about? I'm sure the other person knows what she or he talks about, but all these different levels of abstraction she can do, this is amazing. Some people, they even afraid of themselves, wow, where am I now of thinking, right? Or, I don't know, all these artistic, the talents, no end. So all these different layers obscuring my creator, all these different layers I can, pass through.
Yeah, I mean, and that just perfectly fits with my expectations as well, because I want there to be, I have the need for endless meaning. Alhamdulillah. So we are out of time. Does anyone have any closing remarks they'd like to share, either online or?
Alhamdulillah.
Closing remarks.
Closing remark. The end of the third paragraph just made me remember or think of something. I just wanted to share that. So it says, you can compare how many veils there are from the particular degree of creativity of the name of creator, which is manifested on you to the greatest degree and supreme title, which is creator of all the universe. So it's heavy emphasis on the name of creator. And he says, that means on condition you leave the whole universe behind you. From the door of creativity, you may reach the limits of the name of creator and draw close to the sphere of attributes. So it's as if this name of creator, this creativity, it can be a sort of path that you take, or a name that you latch onto. First you look at the creation of something, or how it is created, the fact that it exists. And this can take you to the other names. And this reminded me of when the prophet first became a prophet. The story goes that, or how I've heard is that, he's in the cave, and then the revelation comes, read, and then he says, I can't read. And then it goes on that, the angel then grabs him and squeezes him. And I'm thinking, when you can't read the names in existence, kind of you feel the world is squeezing you. You want to be able to read it in all these diverse areas of your life. You want to be able to read these names, but you can't read it. It seems like the world is squeezing you. And then it goes, Ikra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Read the name of your Lord with the name of who is the creator. As in here, he says, read with this name of creator. It can be a sort of path for you. So even when things these diverse creations that we see, I go to work, I go to school, it's very hard to read names there, but just maybe if I could start from the name of creator, that could be the path I can take to start making sense of the other names that are there as well. That's all.
So you think, I really like it, so if you don't mind, I will highlight. You're saying even when you do not make sense of something, just remember that it's being created. It's not there by itself, it's being created in front of you. And this will be a pathway for you to see other names.
To add on, wouldn't it work because these names are all related, they point to each other, that if you started with a particular name, other name, you might be able to find a route to that as well. And so, I don't know, I guess, yeah, emphasis was given on creator, but I would think it would work with any other name. Just have to work for it, I don't know.
Yeah, I think like it might be difficult for me to see like compassion in a particular event, but I can definitely say it exists. So using that, I think, as the doorway is what I understood. The door of creativity.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. الفاتحة.